Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot is an absurdist existential play in which two characters, Vladimir and Estragon, spend the entire play waiting for a third character, Godot, who never appears. The play is variously funny, frustrating, despairing, boring, and ridiculous. All of the action takes place as Vladimir and Estragon wait endlessly for the mysterious Godot. They are bored, they despair, they muse about God and existence, but nothing they seem to do matters or has any joy in it. The set is bare except for a single leafless tree. They cannot remember why they are there or why they are waiting for Godot. The events repeat meaninglessly, and the characters are unable to affect them. Estragon is unable even to recognize the repetition, while Vladimir has glimmers of awareness that only bring him rage at the meaninglessness of it all. The few times when the characters choose to do something about their predicament, they cannot seem to physically enact their decision. So they go on and on and on, in endless, meaningless repetition, peppered by suffering, boredom, and cruelty. It's unpleasant. It's an unpleasant play. In fact, at the French debut of the play, a French theater critic sitting in the audience famously stood up in the middle of the show, shouted, "Je n'entends pas pour Godot," which means, "I will not wait for Godot," and stormed out. So, that may or may not be a recommendation for you to go see it. But Beckett is reflecting a real experience of human existence. He's distilling that experience and then asking people to join him in it through the play. Life feels like this sometimes, and when it does, there's no thinking your way out of it. Like with the characters in the play, thoughts start to become circular, and the few times that reason leads to decision, the will to carry it out is absent. A friend told me that when he gets in these kinds of funks, he knows he should get up and do something, anything, but he can't seem to climb off the couch. Grief, depression, despair, even boredom can be paralyzing. There was a period in my early 20s when I was struggling to find any sense of joy or hope. I couldn't talk to my family, I wasn't interested in hanging out with my friends, and some days getting out of bed just seemed like too much. At the time, I was able to remember that I used to enjoy these things, but I couldn't imagine enjoying them again. I could barely imagine simply not hating everything. I had experienced a lot of loss, which had affected my understanding of how the world worked. My grief had turned into hopelessness and despair. I had a friend at the time who also knew darkness. He had experienced loss too and also struggled with cynicism and despair. I felt like he was the only person who understood. Every day, we would walk together down to the lake, sit on a wooden bench, and look out over the water. We would smoke cigarettes. I actually hate smoking, and I'm not advocating that. I didn't even really enjoy it then, but it was a way of materializing my grief, a way of putting into action my slowly smoldering rage, of being able to see it, hold it in my hand, grind it out, light it again. It was a physical manifestation of my pain, and that gave me a sense of control. But other than that, we just sat 4 hours every day. We would walk down to the lake and sit in front of it, staring. Sometimes we would talk, sometimes we wouldn't. This time of year is complex. People tell me that autumn is high cultural season in Chicago, and I can see why. The beauty here is intoxicating. The weather is practically perfect. The air is crisp, and you can wear sweaters or apparently shorts and be comfortable. And there are people, lovely people, and food-filled holidays. But all of this beauty also portends death. The leaves shimmering with color because they're dying. As they carpet the ground with sound and smell, they're leaving the branches bare for winter. The air is crisp because it's getting colder. Winter is coming, hovering around the corner like a shadow. The warm cups of cider we're holding today foreshadow shivering cold hands of tomorrow. The harvest season is when we bring in the last batch of fresh food that we gather before the ground lies fallow under the snow. Renewal comes with a price. Often when we're stepping out into a new life, there is a painful process of letting go of elements of a previous life. There's loss. There's transition. There are many ways that human beings mark the seasonal transitions and their relationship to transitions themselves in our lives. Like we've stated a number of times, our modern celebration of Halloween has evolved from the ancient Celtic holiday of Samhain, which marked the change of seasons. It marked the shift from the warm and abundant summer months to the long, cold winter, which particularly in ancient times was often full of death. In the season of the in-between time, Samhain, the night of the shift on October 31st, it was believed that the veil between this earthly plane, and the great beyond was the thinnest. It was a night when spirits could cross over and visit us, when the living could be in touch with the dead. People understood that some ghosts who came to visit were friendly. The spirits of dead loved ones come back, while others were mean, and you wanted to avoid them. So they put food out for the friendly ones and wore masks in the streets to hide their faces from the mean ones. Sound familiar? Whether or not you believe in a metaphysical world beyond this one, the tradition points at something that obviously still resonates for people today. While our ghosts might not take form and bang on chains or ride around on a horse with a jack-o'-lantern head, we do have ghosts. We all have them in our lives. Sometimes they're just a shadow haunting the dark recesses of our mind. But other times, they're more present. The ghost of a lost loved one that still seems to be sitting at the table. They're present in their absence. The ghost of a previous minister who's still influencing a congregation in real ways. The ghost of a dream lost, rattling the chains of longing and fogging up the view of present possibility. The veil between the worlds is thin. The veil between your conscious and your subconscious can be disrupted. The veil between the present and the past is permeable. In the season of transitions, ghosts can feel more present. It's the in-between times, the times when realities are less stable, when our routines are less powerful, that the chimeras of otherworldly presences make themselves more loudly known in our lives. The beauty is mysterious, and the transition can be disconcerting. It can be eerie, wistful, painful, absurd. The in-between time feels a lot like waiting. There are a variety of ways to experience waiting. Many of us have had the experience of waiting for Godot. It's boring, peppered with suffering. There's an almost unreal quality to it, absurd, even macabre, but not in a fun way, in a dark, sad way. Ghosts can be more difficult to reckon with as the days grow shorter. There's a reason that human beings are afraid of the dark. It's harder to see, easier to trip, easier to get lost. We're more vulnerable. When I used to sit with my friend on that bench staring out at the water, I felt adrift. I was waiting, but without any sense that anything would ever come again. I had the sense that we were just drifting there meaninglessly and terribly. But like Vladimir and Estragon, I was not drifting alone. I had a friend who was sitting next to me, staring out at the same scene. But unlike Vladimir and Estragon, I felt that my friend understood me. We shared gallows humor about the absurdity of it all. We shared smokes. We shared silence. I was not alone. In the end, this was what got me through that time in my life, that there was someone sitting there with me. No matter how far away the closest person felt, no matter what the distance of the chasm of loneliness I was shouting across was, there was still another person on the other side of the chasm shouting back to me. Like in Waiting for Godot, some of the chatter was meaninglessness, but we still chattered. To share that chatter mattered. It didn't fix it, but it made it a little bit better. It didn't spare me my hurt, and it didn't span the chasm between us, but it still mattered that someone was sitting with me. Sometimes there's nothing to do but wait. Nothing to do but wait. Nothing to do but wait in this absurd, tragic comedy of life. Sometimes renewal won't come, and we can't make it come. We can't make it come for ourselves, and we can't make it come for people we love. The grief or the loss or the pain, it's just too present right now, too loud, too real. The boredom, it's endless. Everything feels meaningless. Sometimes the mean ghosts come around and they haunt our minds, and no mass is going to make them go away. Sometimes the ghost of a lost loved one is too present to move on yet. And maybe you're not ready to. When you find yourself or one of your loved ones facing this sort of suffering, you just have to keep waiting. Keep sitting there. Keep existing through it. There's no magic wand. There's nothing I can wave and fix it, nothing I can say, nothing anyone can say. Only the slow unrolling time will change it. And it stinks. I don't have anything else besides that. It's not fun. The only thing that I can say is that we will sit with you. We will sit with you and stare at the sea, or keep the silence, or share a smoke. If you're struggling with this absurdist version of the play called life, let someone sit down next to you. Let them drift with you for a little while. It's no miracle, but it's the only useful thing. And if your loved one is drifting, go sit down next to them. Don't try to fix it or tell them to get over it or snap out of it. Don't assume that you know anything about their ghosts or their experience of drifting. Just sit and listen. And be willing to watch the waves together in silence. Renewal eventually comes, but it comes with a price. The season of drifting only passes with time, and the only thing that makes a difference in the waiting is company. So in suffering, let us sit with one another. May it be so, and blessed be.